effectively bore you. And I had this very nifty presentation from one of the conferences I did there. And it was actually a very good presentation on capital markets, financial institutions, you know, very good thing. And I presented it in front of a big audience, you know, in Romania at an industry conference. So I came with this conference to the academy, and of course, you know, Kołodko was there, and a lot of people were there. And just one question. Do you imagine how many students were in the room? Like, make a wild guess. How many students were in the room when I was talking about evolution of the financial markets? Like, the title was very sophisticated, okay? Any guesses? How many students were in the room?
Several hundred.
Several hundred. Very good, young man. No, very far from several hundred. There were 2 students in the room. Literally 2 students in the room, okay? So I figured maybe that's not the best approach. Maybe you guys are not really that interested in only talking about capital markets. So I figured I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to do a hybrid today. I'm going to first of all show you my career, and I'm going to talk to you how my career encompasses a few things which I've learned or I effectively stole with pride from a genie fit into that picture. I was effectively one of you. I was sitting in that bench years back. I graduated from this. Actually, I don't even remember, but I have it on the time scale. I've been in business for 14 years, so that's 14 years ago when I graduated from this academy. And I was like these folks, because I was running the largest at that point in time student body on this academy, which I know is still operating. I'm not sure how successful they are. These so, you know, I sat in your shoes, and in a way, I think flavor of what to focus on when you're taking decisions in life, which effectively boil down to what you will be doing in your corporate and entrepreneurial development. So let me take this pointer, which I've been kindly provided with. Unfortunately, I am a man of many skills, yet I'm not still able to look behind me. Therefore, I've printed out the slides. It's going to be easier. Okay. So, to start off, what I'm going to show you, this is the only boring slide I'm going to show today, and I'm showing this slide on purpose because I want to show you the difference. My question is, what do you think about this slide? And be honest with me. What do you think about this slide? Is it a good slide? Is it a bad slide? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? Don't go into the details of the content. I mean the picture. Do you like the picture, or do you think it's? Go ahead, please. You know what to focus on. So it's a busy slide, isn't it? Yeah? It's a busy slide. Very good. It is a busy slide. And you know what? Every day in corporate world, we use these type of slides. So I've been at Citi, I've been at JK, I've been at S&P, we use these type of slides. For you guys, you need different type of slides. You need something which now has been developed by the entrepreneurial startup community with the completely new mindset. And when I go to conferences, and I do a lot of conferences, by the way, I speak on conferences probably twice per month around the world. Mostly in Central Eastern Europe. You know, there's always this mismatch. You have a guy like me talking in this type of language, and you have a guy that comes that has recently, or is working for, let's say, Google, and he's showing a different type of slides. And this is the type of slides he's showing, and this is the type of slides I'm going to use today. Because what I want you guys to see is that I want to show you a hybrid. I want to show you a hybrid between the corporate world, the entrepreneurial world, and the startup world. I want to show you how all of that fits together, and how in a corporate environment you can find space to create your own business. You can create your own ideas, and you can be creative outside of the framework which you mostly associate with working for a big organization. Okay? So that's the focus. So the focus is, for you guys, is what you should do with your life. And I know you must be thinking about it, because that was what I was doing when I was your age. So I actually hope you are thinking about that. So I hope you're thinking about decisions, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about. How to make intelligent decisions, how to use some of the stuff invented every day. You guys know LinkedIn, don't you? Is there anyone in the room that doesn't know LinkedIn? Good, that's a good test. Okay, so this guy, when he graduated from Stanford University, it took him 15 years to think what he wants to do with his life. He's been trying different things. He's been a lecturer, he's been an entrepreneur, some of his businesses failed, and then he sat down with a few buddies and they created a company which is now worth $20 billion US. This guy has a net worth, I checked it today, of $5 billion US. And this guy has a pretty relaxed mindset, I can imagine now. So what he's doing, he is effectively lecturing, he's writing books, and he's considering how to maximize the information he gets from LinkedIn. And you know he gets a lot of information from LinkedIn. It's the largest, actually, important fact. LinkedIn has the highest revenue per user in the internet community. You guys know that, you know, Facebook, great, a bit of a mystery, you should read it. You know, he helped for you guys. You are now operating in a competitive world. Look around you. You're not competing in Poland. If you want to go abroad, you will be competing with people from all over the world. And believe me, as you know, the unemployment rates in Europe are high. There are many people out there that are looking for good jobs. So you need to be mindful of competition and think how to outsmart competition. We will talk a bit about that. Secondly, he's talking about networks, so the power of networking. Of course, he's talking about networks. That's how he made his 5 billion. So the guy is a master of creating networks, and that's also what I will tell you a bit, how you can apply that in your everyday work and activities. And then the third point he's talking about is risk. Intelligent risk, he calls it. And I'm going to tell you a bit about the intelligent risks that I've taken in life and the intelligent risk that you guys should consider when you're taking decisions. So with that, I think that's a good introduction to what we will be talking about. So this thing is, you know, effectively something which has been always a paradigm. The paradigm has always been that when you're sitting in those benches, you effectively coming out, there's a machine. Actually, do you know how education was invented? Education, guys, was invented for manual workers, for blue collars. It was in the UK, effectively back in the Industry Revolution, when the owners of factories, together with the state, sat down and said, we don't have skilled employees. We need to create a facilitator that is giving us skilled manual operators of the machines, and we're going to call it the educational system. That's how the system was created, and it evolved up to where it is today. I'm not saying you should be blue collar, you shouldn't. Some of you might want to, it's actually quite an interesting job. But what I'm telling to you is that the education we are used to is a bit of an obsolete model. And it is a different type of a, you know, discussion we can have. But you know, what you gain here, that's the foundation. Those are the pillars for what you need to do with your life in terms of the development. But that's only the beginning. And I'm going to show you how to, hopefully I'm going to show you how to take advantage of that beginning, because you know, the world of employment is changing significantly. And you know, the whole approach of stable careers in the US, in Germany, for example, you know, people were working for companies for like 30 years. I remember at JP Morgan, we once had a person that was working there for 60 years. Can you imagine working 60 years in one company? So, you know, that whole concept is being broken. The idea of having, you know, stable careers, and look at the guys that were working at Lehman, look at the guys that were working at Nomura. You know, the world has flipped completely, and the whole approach of having a stable career in banking has completely moved away. And it's not only about banking. When you work in banking these days, one thing is certain: one day they will fire you. It's just a matter of when. Really, that's how it works. When you're in London, that's what people are mindful of. So the whole approach of stable career paths is disappearing, and you need to be mindful of it. And look at it, it's not only a risk, it's also a huge opportunity. It is a huge opportunity, and we will talk about that. As I mentioned, competition can come from anywhere these days. You know, we operate on a global environment. You guys are global players. I hope you are mostly on the English track. I presume a lot of you want to work abroad. If so, God bless you. It is a good idea to educate yourself for some time and then maybe come back. But because of that, you are exposing yourselves to a significant amount of competition. So when I was applying for my job at JP Morgan, when I was headhunted to JP Morgan, I was competing with, and I was supposed to cover the German sector, the German market, by the way. I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. So I was competing with 2 internal guys that were native Germans. Okay, I'm covering the German sector. So 2 native internal guys, 1 external guy, German, and 2 British blokes. Okay, so I was competing against the whole world. It wasn't that I was competing with my friend back from, you know, Mokotów. No, it was far more intense. So you guys need to be aware of that. You will need to stand out on a global level. And that's what you really need to bear in mind when preparing your career paths. The world continues to change, and it does continue to change. Look at it. We just had the quick chat about technology, you know, like how everything has evolved. You know, look at the iPhone, look at media. Who buys newspapers these days? Not that many people. Everyone read them on the iPads. The world is evolving, and it's going to evolve even more and more as you guys grow up and as you guys enter the labor scene. So again, don't look at it as a risk. It is a huge opportunity. But be mindful of it. That change will be something that is elemental to your future. And there was one saying I remember at Citi. Everyone was saying, at Citi, there is only one thing which is constant. What is the only constant thing at Citi? I ask you. Change. Thank you very much. Exactly. It is change. And the Citi has gone through, you know that Citi has gone through, you're observing through, a lot of trouble, a lot of issues. Now it's trying to rebuild itself, but still they're changing. Effectively, if you run a business department and you haven't made a change in the last year, you're probably doing something wrong. And I mean fundamental change. Yeah, it's not only means moving, Mr. A to sit where Mr. Z was sitting. It's something more fundamental. So change is effectively something that you guys need to be mindful of, and you need to reconsider how to take advantage of it. Because as mentioned, in this ever-changing environment and in all of the dynamics that are taking place, when starting to prepare for your career, it is a process that will last your entire life. It's not that you get a job and you sit there for 30 years, as I just said. You will need to adjust, you will need to effectively become one with the market and operate as the market needs you to. So that is an extremely important thing I want you to keep in mind. And with that, to show you illustration, I'm always a fan of people that talk showing concrete examples. I'm not a fan of about things that they have no clue about. This I've put together because you wanted to hear about my personal experience. So this is the evolution of my professional career path. And so when I graduated from the school, I can talk about that a bit later, maybe a bit more how that it all ended up, because I think it is important to divide my life and your life into two segments. One segment is the time that you spend at school and maximize that time, and I will tell you how I believe is best to maximize that time. And the second part, the latter part, is when you enter the corporate, the business environment. Corporate, I'm saying because you can do also your own business, and I will also show you because I've also had two companies along the way doing my own businesses. So when I started at Citi, I enrolled in a program which was called the Management Associate. It's actually something that I can really recommend to you. It's a program that is run by many organizations. It's a program that allows you to enter the organization and on a relatively high managerial level, experiment through 2 years on 4 rotations, getting a sense and a vibe of how the industry, how the company operates. So that's how I started. And I remember one of my first projects was someone, this is Citi. I'm doing corporate investment banking. At that point in time, I was based in Warsaw, and I remember someone calls from New York. So I was the management associate to the head of the corporate bank in Poland. So very senior person. Effectively, management associate meant that I am effectively doing everything he tells me to. Which meant both the good and the bad. Yeah, you all remember in the corporate world and in the entrepreneurial world, you always need to do your dog years. And be proud of your dog years, because that is effectively what creates you as a person, and that's what creates you as a manager. So don't expect that you're going to go to an international bank and become a director. I wish you that. But at first, it's going to be painful. Yeah, it's going to take time. And my pain time was, I remember this guy comes to me and he says, you know what, Marcin, I just had a call from New York. We're changing how the corporate bank is organized in Poland. And I mean it, we're changing the whole structure, which means we are laying off 100 people, and we are integrating all of the business units into one business unit, and you effectively, as my management associate, I'm very busy, you will effectively project for us, because there isn't anyone else that I can appoint. So I was sitting there, and effectively this guy gave me a role of walking around, understanding what different people do and trying to put it all into some kind of an equation, and then together with him sitting effectively on a list of people that need to be replaced or need to be removed from the organization. So the element of change, and when this was finalized, so the project was implemented, this guy comes to me and says, there was a big change and we changed organizations, I have a slot now within the financial institutions world. You manage the project quite okay, maybe you want to take that slot. You're now graduating from the MA program, so maybe you just want to grab that slot. So again, the opportunity that was created by the change gave me the ability to enter into a role which if I would enter the organization at that point in time from outside, I would never even be considered for this type of a role. So when you are inside, remember that it's all about walking the extra mile, and I will be emphasizing that more and more as we go into the details. If you guys have any questions on the way, you can always ask. Don't feel stressed. You can just ask questions, or at the end, whatever you want. Yeah?
Okay, so what was the major reason that you left Citi in 2007? Was it a change? Or
it was, you know what, I'm going to talk about that. It's a good question. It's risk. I took a risk. I took a chance in life, because one point in time I was sitting, here in Warsaw, and I had more and more exposure to London, because I was running a few accounts for Central Eastern Europe. And someone calls me from London and says, "Hi, I'm a headhunter from the city. There's a bank looking for a person that more or less meets your profile. And this person that they're looking for needs to fit that profile. But the role is based full-time in London." The guy left. I think he was like, oh, that answer exceeded his beliefs. Doesn't matter. We can rehearse that later. But anyway, so I effectively decided that I want to do something bigger. I want to be part of a different organization, and effectively I want to move to London. I knew that if in the industry that I am in, and I was in corporate investment banking, the only place to develop is working with the best, and the best are based in London. There are a few good people in Warsaw now, because they returned from London recently, but still it is the case. So I took the chance, and I decided my career in Poland over. I'm moving full-time to London, and I'm effectively joining this organization, doing a bit something different. So it was a chance. It was a chance I took because the opportunity that I saw was something appealing. And then if you ask me why I changed for Standard & Poor's, when I was leaving JP Morgan, I had two roles. And this is I'm only telling this to you because you probably will be impressed. I don't really care. It's more because it's like those roles are quite impressive. Only on paper, of course, because it's always like that. So my first role, I was the deputy head of JP Morgan in Poland. So I was effectively overseeing all JP Morgan business in Poland, also a bit part of Central Eastern Europe. And then my second role was I was running a team of people covering financial institutions. Covering means, working with biggest financial institutions in the region across all products for JP Morgan, in a region composed of Russia, Central Eastern Europe, Israel, and CIS countries. So effectively everything from Germany to Asia was under my supervision. I had a team, people working for me in London, people working for me in Moscow. I spent my time between flights. You could either find me in Moscow, in Warsaw, or in London. It was a hectic lifestyle, I tell you, but a lot of fun, and it's super intense and super interesting. So probably a lot of people were telling me at that point in time, Marcin, you're on top. Why are you even considering to change your job? And I'm going to tell you why I did that change, because of entrepreneurship, because of the ability to effectively run a startup. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about that, because I think I've actually left that to the end. I've left this piece, which I'm a big architect of this whole concept of doing your own business, setting up your own business within the corporate space. And we can talk a bit about that later. So I'm not going to bore you more details about my life. If you have any questions, I can talk a bit about that. And I will also try to give you a bit of synopsis after. But one thing which is extremely important, and I think which has led me to where I am today, and which will lead you to where you want to be in your future career, is the whole concept of the competitive advantage. And I think I've mentioned to you the aspect of competition. I've mentioned to you the aspect of the global competition. So competitive advantage is something that you guys really need to be familiarize yourself and start to build. So I hope everyone knows what competitive advantage is. I hope everyone does. You did your homework, which is good. At the academy, do you still have Obui? Is Obui still lecturing here?
Yes.
He is. Well, great guy, by the way. So he talked about competitive advantage. So as I mentioned, to beat the competition on the market, you guys today need to start developing your competitive advantage. Some people call it niche, some people call it specialization, some people call it a standard. Why? Because I've been hiring people for the last years, and when I've been even hiring, I was at JP. I was doing the recruitment for the graduate program. So all of the graduates that came for the summer, I was one of the people that were interviewing them. And I'm going to tell you that in London, the quality of the CVs we got were super impressive, super impressive. I saw people, I'm very fortunate to even work with one of them now, and I can tell you a bit more about that later, but I saw people that really stood out, you know, like guys or girls coming in, you know, 20-something and having experience in, you know, from Goldman Sachs to McKinsey around the world, and, you know, really bright young people. So and of course, and on top of that, you know, presidents of the school council and you name it, these guys were doing it. They were even helping orphans in Africa, like really they were. So, you know, it is important to build this whole story, this sales story. You know, when you run a company and when you are trying to tap into the capital markets, now I'm going to do a bit of into, you know, the capital markets, so you feel that I'm not only talking, you know, things that are soft. Imagine you're running a company and you're effectively trying to get money. You can get money, you know, from the stock exchange, you can get money from through issuing bonds, you can go to the bank. What is the most important thing that you need to have? You need to have a story. You need to be able to justify what you need the money for and how the investor will make a return on the fact that they are investing in you. Exactly that is your case. You guys need to show the person that potentially wants to hire you why you are a good investment, why they should hire you, and then gain proceeds by having you on board. And that is what I mean by the competitive advantage. That is what I mean by you guys, when you are building your career, you definitely need to focus on three things. One is, you know, aspirations, so where you want to be. And, you know, don't worry, these things will change. You know, today you can think you want to be working in, I don't know, in oil. Tomorrow you can be doing automotive. You're young, that's good. Just, you know, you will adjust. But create aspirations which are tangible, which are measurable, and which allow you to create some kind of a road that you can already now start to follow, educate yourself on, and create this competitive advantage. Then, you know, focus on your assets. I mentioned this. You know, you guys, you know, some of you probably don't even know it, but you already have gained a lot of exposure, a lot of knowledge that you can sell on the market. And, you know, one good example is, you know, emerging markets these days, and Central Eastern Europe, and Poland in particular. I know there are also a few people from Ukraine here. You know, all of the exposure to these type of markets. Remember, in London, they don't have that. So, you know, if you are potentially competing against a person from the UK, that person from the UK will not have the local language skills, will not have an understanding of the local market infrastructure, how it operates, and will not be able to really talk that freely with the local community that they are supposed to work with. Those are your assets, and you need to focus on it. And again, you know, if your aspiration is to be the head of a company operating in the UK, effectively you should focus on developing your assets that they are geared to be UK-centric. You probably will not be a CEO of a UK company if you are Polish and you only operate in Poland. Yeah. So that type of you know, thought concept you guys need to keep in mind to really develop the assets in such a way that they match your aspirations. And then, end of day, you know, it all boils down to market realities. Because so, how does the market react to what you have to deliver to it? So again, that's extremely important that, you know, you guys talk to employers, you network with people out there to be able to understand what I should be doing best to find my way to meet my aspirations. So, you know, very simple terms, what I'm encouraging you to do is to take a very proactive approach in terms of developing your career. And I'm going to now switch again back to my example, and I'm going to show you what I've been doing when I was studying at this academy. When I was studying at this is exactly, so you remember I told you I don't remember when I graduated, now I do it 2002, and I started my studies in 96 probably, I'm not even sure, maybe even later, well it's 5 years, so yeah, 97 I think it was. And those are all the activities that I was doing during my studies. So this is how I built my competitive advantage. This is the day I remember it as it was yesterday. One of the few things I remember is that when I graduated from the school, literally when I handed in my thesis and got my A on it, it was a Friday. On the Monday I started working for Citigroup in Poland at the most exclusive program for graduates called Management Associate. Only 20 people enrolled every year. So because of this, not because of end of the day because of me, but because of this. Because I made the appropriate attention to build this competitive advantage when entering into the recruitment process. So what has happened here? So first of all, when I was studying, ABB, you see the first thing. Every holidays, every summer, I got onto this program where ABB, I'm sure you know ABB, it's a big electric automation company, Swedish slash Switzerland. These guys were doing a program for students that you could if you got on it. Every year, every summer holiday, you could choose a place from ABB in Europe and go and work there for 1 month. And it was effectively no barriers. You can effectively go wherever. The only problem is that your first 2 rotations needed to be blue collar, so you needed to work in a factory, assembling devices. So my 2 first jobs was I was assembling electric devices in a factory, one in Germany, second in Norway. Germany, remember JP Morgan was looking for a person that covers the German market. I was working in Germany, I could show it to them. I knew the language, great connection there. So for 4 times I've done this thing with ABB. So I just, when my friends were going on holiday, sorry, 1 month I'm out. It was sometimes even a bit longer. And I went there and I was, doing molding or some type of activities on the assembly line. The first 2 rotations, if they were happy with your 2 rotations, then for the next 2 years they gave you an office job. And I remember my first office job was it was one of those things. I'm sure how it all operated is that they just sent an email. Well, we didn't have probably emails yet. They weren't that popular. So they sent out a telex internally or a fax, whatever. And we have this guy, like whoever wants to take him, just take him. And so for my next 2, whatever you call it, adventures, the guy was super stressed and he was overworked because they told him you need to develop the web page of ABB Norway. And like the internet in 97 or 98, it was still anachronic, it was still old school. And this guy had no clue how to do it. So he said, yeah, I'm going to take this guy because I need whatever it takes to help me to accomplish. So I go into there and this guy tells me, okay, so now you're going to help me to set up the web page of the ABB Norway whole thing. So again, it was an opportunity that completely came out of the blue. But because I was, there and I was willing to take it, it gave me, a bit of a perspective, which I, encourage you guys to do. Okay, then one of the rotations I did at ABB was I was implementing something which is called SAP. SAP is a CRM slash management software, a bit like Oracle. And again, they had this team which was implementing SAP in Germany. They didn't have staff enough, so they took me. Okay, now we're going to be sitting here and entering data, blah, blah, blah. And then this company, Electrim, I'm sure you know them, maybe your generation doesn't remember. It was like a big company in Poland, then it went bankrupt nearly. It wasn't because of me, no. So these guys said, okay, we are implementing SAP in Poland. So they started looking for people that had any skills of SAP. Hello, I was doing SAP for 1 month, but I was like one of the few people of the young generation that had any clue about SAP. So they hired me, and while I was still, working. I was still on my studies, but they gave me this opportunity that I could come to work whenever I had time, more or less. And I was helping their team to set up SAP in Poland. So again, it wasn't a big thing. It's more what I'm trying to show you is I'm trying to show you the randomness, huge randomness which happens. If you enter a place, you build some kind of skills. Then in an sometimes even automatic way, they then get transferred to other features of your life. And then what I did, I established my own company. I actually had 3 companies in my life. This is the first. So when I was studying, I had a friend that was working at a bank in Poland. And remember, this was 2001. So the capital market looked completely different. And this guy was an FX trader. So this guy was effectively working with companies in Poland, doing FX for them, so effectively exchanging currencies. And he said, you know what, there is a big gap on the market, Marcin, he said, because those companies, they only, the companies that come to us as a bank, only the ones that have the big ticket get the good spreads. The ones which have the small tickets get nasty spreads. So we should do something about it. And what can you do about it? You integrate. You effectively take all the small players, you put them together, and you say, by the way, now we are a big player, so we have a big ticket, so you need to give us the better exchange rate. And what you effectively say to the folks like that you want to service is that you will be effectively saving money for them. The fact that you take 10% of it, that's not a sin. You anyway have that. So this is what we've been doing. So effectively, he was in the banking space. I was still studying. I was effectively running this whole show, and I was going to small and medium companies in Poland and telling them, guys, do you want to save, I don't know, 20% on your FX? Of course, everyone said yes. It's like you don't need to be a genius to say that. So people were effectively giving us these type of flows, super simple, super easy, and we were having fun doing it, educating ourselves. Great experience. I can only recommend you. So even for small things, and it's not only internet, it's not only startups, but it's even for small things. If you are creative and if you have a good network of people, I told you it was thanks to the fact that I was a good friend of mine was working in the bank and he knew where the niche was. We managed to pull this thing off, and it operated, I think, for 2 years. Then we just then he moved from Poland to London, as I mentioned, because people at that point in time were transferring themselves from the banking community to London. And I graduated from school, so I went on to also work. And then simultaneously, what I was doing, I was running this whole Tiger thing here at the Academy. So very similar to what you guys are doing. I've set up together with Kołotko, under his leadership, I've set up the largest at that point in time, and I'm proud of it up till today, the largest student organization in Poland at that point in time. We had over 120 active members. It was a great thing because Kołotko at that point in time was the prime minister. He was once the prime minister, so the deputy prime minister, and the minister of finance. And he was twice doing that role. So because of that, we had a huge access to his network. So he was calling Kulczyk and saying, Mr. Doctor, could you come over and speak to the students? And Mr. Doctor was happy. He came, and we benefited from it. We had the opportunity to interact with people. And a lot of the people that I've met during that time, I still work with them. And I remember that there was one person I met at that point in time, completely randomly. His name is Stefan Kawalec. He probably even doesn't know the story. Stefan Kawalec at that point in time, he was a former minister. I don't remember what, infrastructure or something. Yeah, we used to have a ministry of infrastructure. We don't have it anymore. And afterwards, he went on to become the head of strategy for Citi, the head of strategy in Poland for Citi. And we had one of those, meetings. And Kawalec, because I was the president of that whole organization, so I need to entertain him. So we're talking, and he goes to me, by the way, at Citi, we are running this program. It's called Management Associate. Maybe some of you guys will be interested in it. If you want, I'm going to link you with our HR department so they can tell you a bit about that. So, because I met this Kawalec guy, which I wouldn't have met if I wasn't part of Tiger, like he showed me something, which I then effectively went on, and then that's how I got on the program. He didn't help me that much. He just showed me this is something interesting. Maybe you want to consider that. So, when I was graduating from school, this was my CV. So, when I was comparing myself to other people, it was quite easy because I had some experience. And so, I'm definitely encouraging you guys to consider that, and really encouraging you to maximize this time outside of the academy and outside of what you do in your everyday endeavors, also to try to think a bit outside the box. Yeah. Second point which I wanted to talk to you about, we talked about competitive advantage, we talked about how to build and today frame your development and try to maximize as much the time that you currently have. Secondly, what I want to show you is building your networks. And building your networks is extremely important because at the end of the day, what you will be doing in your future professional life is you will be working with people. You probably are reading about this. Last, I think, 10 years, we are operating in something which is called the knowledge-based economy. The knowledge-based economy means effectively that it's all run by people and it's all denominated in people's heads. So whatever, if you're manufacturing cars, if you're manufacturing bolts, if you're manufacturing whatever, or if you're into banking, end of day, it's all a knowledge-based thing. Because of that, people are that important. So don't downplay the importance of networks. Why? Because those type of people, they effectively control everything which is important for you. So if you're looking for resources, opportunities, any type of ideas, even, as I mentioned, Kawalec telling me about something that I should be interested in, That's the type of networking and that's the type of people management I'm talking about. And one important thing is that, you know, the more time you spend with people when you are interacting with them, the more good or bad you become aligned or you become alike. Again, another example from my life. When I was running here at the academy, Tiger, this whole Tiger initiative. During one of these events, we were organizing conferences. You know, you guys should do this. It was actually pretty good. So you would enjoy this. We did weekend conferences. Weekend conferences. We left Warsaw for the weekend. We were partying, playing, and having fun. At the same time, during the day, we had meetings. You know, we had guests coming in to speak about things that were of importance at that point in time. And I remember we organized one conference which was about financial institutions and about the financial markets or financial market. And among many people there was a guy, someone introduced me. He was working at Merrill Lynch at that point in time in London. He was a bit older than I was. I don't even remember what was his age at that point in time. 30 probably. So you know, so I get in touch with this guy, say, you know, maybe you would be in Poland, you want to come and speak to students. He says, you know, why not? He comes in, he speaks at this panel. It wasn't very revolutionary. He just spoke about what Merrill Lynch is, how to work in capital markets, in investment banking, blah blah blah. So this guy, up to today, is a good friend of mine, and currently he's back in Poland, and he is the CEO and owner of one of the most successful financial startups, businesses, backed up by one of the most affluent Poles in Poland. And because I managed to, you know, not only did I learn from him a lot on the way, but because of, you know, the fact that I managed to interact with him at such an early stage, you know, not only did we become friends, but also in a way, as mentioned here, you know, he in a way shaped my development because he was a bit older and he was doing effectively a very similar development in his career. So don't underestimate that. As I mentioned, I'm going to actually interpret this in a bit different way. In London, everyone said, and I mentioned this just before we started, is dress not for the job that you want, not for the job that you have, but for the job that you want. Okay? And it was funny because you always had, you know, the most junior people in London, they were always wearing the best suits. Because everyone has this thing that, you know, if I want to be a CEO, I need to today dress as a CEO. It's a bit like this, you know, you want to hang out with people that you want to be going forward. So I think this whole concept of, you know, being able to tap into and have access to a community that is maybe a bit smarter and a bit more experienced than you, that's exactly something that you guys should take pride in, and that's where you really should take advantage of, because the more you will spend time with them, the more hopefully successful and you will be able to develop. This is an example of, I mentioned to you that I do a lot of these type of conferences. This is the latest conference I've been doing. It's called Warsaw Capital Market Summit. It's the largest conference organized by the Warsaw Stock Exchange for the capital market here in Poland. And this is again, you know, a good example of networking. So on this panel, you see I was actually the moderator for this panel. You can actually watch it online, I think. So I was the moderator there. I'm just going to show you the people that we have, because this is again a good example of networking. So I knew two of those guys before, but you know, because I was on this panel, because I had access to this community, all of those four guys now are effectively good business acquaintances of mine. The guy on the right-hand side, he's the deputy CEO of the Warsaw Stock Exchange. The guy on his left is one of the heads of PZU's investment division here in Poland. The next guy is, well, I actually knew him before, JP Morgan managing director. And then the guy is one of the heads of EBRD in Central Eastern Europe. So again, you know, networking, you know, because I was there, you know, I got access to this type of a platform, and you know, you can see that, you know, there was a lot of people in the audience, people came up later, had this, so, you know, any type of these, and you guys should also participate in this type of activities. And one very important thing, which I always remember was a weakness in this school, and everywhere in Poland, I actually also studied in Sweden, it wasn't a weakness, ask questions, okay, ask, when you are, and doesn't mean that you will now start to ask questions, okay? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying whenever you meet with people, ask them questions, because that's your only way at this point in time to connect with them. So, you know, if you are hosting, I saw you guys were hosting what, Jakubas recently, yeah? Ask him a question. Ask him read something about him before. Ask him a concrete question, because why this way you can create this way you can create some kind of a rapport with him. And again, an example. I remember in this organization that we were running, there was a guy that asked a very good question to the head of AT Kearney. We had the head of AT Kearney coming in to visit us, and this guy asked quite an intelligent question to the head of AT Kearney. And the head of AT Kearney said, you know what, I don't really know the answer to that question. But, so he, of course, he tried to wing it, but then, no, I'm sorry, I don't have all the details. So, you know what, give me your email, and I'm going to respond to you, or have one of my analysts respond to you. So one of the analysts responds to this guy. This guy effectively, picks up the ball, and after, I think, 1 year, this guy is enrolled to their graduate program, starting a summer internship there. Just because he asked this one question to the CEO of AT Kearney, they connected, they were in touch, and it worked. It doesn't need to be always like that. I'm not saying you're going to get, you're going to be hired whenever you ask a question, but I'm just opening you up to this concept, because it's so unusual in Poland that people ask questions. On these type of conferences, it's rarely that people ask questions, and they have access to, a lot of, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about other guys, people with a lot of experience, a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge, and you can really benefit from it. So be really, bold in that. Be really bold in that. Okay, so we talked about, you remember that word, hopefully. Yeah, we talked about networking. We talked about competitive advantage. Now we're going to cover intelligent risk, and we will finish at 6 o'clock, because we have time to 6 o'clock, yeah? So we will try to finish at 6 o'clock. So intelligent risk. What is intelligent risk? What is risk? I'm sure you guys know what risk is, yeah? Risk is, stupid risk is, as someone very intelligent has put it, if you go to a casino, you gamble, that's risk. It's stupid risk. We're talking about intelligent risk, which is a risk with upside. In finance, we talk about risk and return, risk and reward, the balance between risk and reward. That's why investors are successful, because they take risk in a managed environment. And this is what I encourage you guys to do, because in the real world, what it is all about, it's about trying. You guys, the only risk you take is that you try. You try to do something which might be a bit out of your comfort zone, and effectively which should be leading you to be able to develop the aspirations. As you remember the compass I showed you, I talked about aspirations. Those type of things are what you now need to do to be able to develop that. So keep on trying, and really, really push the needle on experimenting and taking things a bit outside of the boundaries, just to be able to develop what you want to do in life. And learn by doing. Yeah, I think even for me today, when I landed the Standard & Poor's job, the first thing I did is I spent 1 month at the headquarters just to get a feeling of how things operate. And I wasn't reading, I wasn't reading reports. I was learning by doing. I became part of the organization running, just because it was the only way for me to really keep up with the pace. Because after 1 month, people don't give you a easy tariff anymore. You're already part of the gang, so you should be playing like the gang. So you need to really learn by doing, and I think this is extremely important. And as I mentioned, get your hands dirty. Get your hands dirty to the max. So if you're doing a presentation, it needs to be the best presentation you've ever done in your life. If you're at the beginning of your career, you need to spend a lot of time on it. Someone's going to come and show you forgot a comma. You're going to smile and say sorry, and next time it comes back, it's going to have, that comma is no longer going to be there. Because that is the only way for you guys to develop a solid backbone for what later will become an essential of being successful. So, dog years, heavy nights, and do it. And it doesn't matter if you're doing corporate or startup activities. And actually I'm going to show you this, because this is an example of my business that I was running. So this goes down to, and you will not see it. You don't need to see it. Like, don't worry, don't read it. It's not important. This is important. Don't care. It's an illustration. So when I was working at Citi, so this is 2004, 2005. I started working at Citi in 2002. Okay, 2002. So I'm there at Citi, 2004, and I started to become bored, because working at a bank at the beginning of her career, and like, you shouldn't be recording this, it's quite boring. because you do more or less, things that are repetitive. You're constantly under pressure. It's interesting. You learn a lot, but is it exciting? Well, those people that tell you it is, probably there's some kind of a lie there, or they have some mental issues. It's not, okay? So I became a bit bored with it. So so I started thinking, you know what? Outside of this, there's a world, and let's try something new. And it was because I met some people that, because I was at Citi, as you know, I had a lot of interaction with different businesses that were also looking to develop, their activity in Poland. And because of someone I knew, they told me, you know what, there's this American company that's coming to Poland, that is considering to establish their business in Poland. And they are doing that because a factory was built in Łódź. You might remember or not, at that point in time, Łódź was heavily developing something which is called the economic zone in Łódź. And one of the biggest companies which they attracted was a factory of Gillette, the razor company. So Gillette came in, and then Gillette, which is an international company, thought, why would we be importing the plastic used for our razors? We need to have it manufactured locally. So the company that is the biggest molder of plastic for Gillette, which is called Precise Technology, came to Poland because they needed to follow their biggest client. If we're not in Poland, these guys will find a different provider. And they were looking to ground themselves in Poland. Yeah, they were looking. This actually, what this is from the web. I actually found it yesterday. It was like, back to the old days. Yeah, back to old school. It's still on the web page. It's PAIS, the Office for Development of Foreign Investments in Poland. And this is an announcement that Precise is opening their factory in Łódź. So Precise was, they came and they started looking for someone that's going to help them enter the market. So because of my connections, again, completely random, I'm like really random, I emailed them and said, I've heard you guys are looking to establish a plant in Poland. And they said, yes, we are. We're looking for two things. We're looking for where to place the plant, whether it should be in Łódź, maybe it should be somewhere, and who to hire, because we want to hire 15 top managers to run this business for us locally. And we are meeting, I think they said we're meeting Deloitte. And I said, by the way, I also know a company that could help you. And they said, great, we're going to meet Deloitte, we're going to meet this company that you know, and we're going to meet another company which they've chosen. I don't remember who. So, of course, what I did is I called my friends and said, guys, this company is coming to Poland, we need to service them. Yeah, it's common knowledge. Yeah, if someone is telling you we want to establish our business and you more or less understand what's happening here, you effectively either set up a company or attach yourselves to a company that was on the market. And there was a company that I found. It was a company run by a person I knew back from the days. Actually, he was with me in Tigryski, in Tiger Relationships Networks. And so with this guy was working. It was an HR company. It was an HR company. I don't remember the name. These guys were doing recruitment. So I came to them and said, guys, let's join forces, let's do a project, let's take this project outside of what you do on a common thing, let's label it under your company because you already have minor track record, by the way. It was a small company. And we organized a pitch. We went for a pitch. This guy, he's listed here, Milton C. Francis. For those of you that don't speak Polish, it says, responsible for the European operations of the American company. That's the guy we've met at a hotel in Poland, when he was just from Deloitte, and we pitched to him that we can do this better than Deloitte, and we can do this better than this other company. To our huge surprise, he chose us. Don't ask me why, he chose us. He said, yeah. So what happened is that I ended up at 6 o'clock closing my company.
He took, let me say, financial risk to take.
You know what? It's recruitment. So what this guy was.
Yeah, but anyways, if you're recruiting someone, you put some, let me say, funds. First, you invest to prove if you really have a point in these people, or it's just a waste of your own money.
No. Think about it. For his eyes, what he was looking to do, he was trying to find someone in Poland that is able to help, as I mentioned, with two things. One, where should I place my factory? Secondly, is who I should hire. So from
where I asked if you ask for, let me say, budget to do it.
Of course we did. We asked him for what is his budget, and we also asked him what fee he wants to pay. Or in a way, we gave him our fee, which we were willing to do this business for. Remember that it was a company, I mentioned, we took a company that had experience in that field. Yes, they had people that were trained and could prove to this guy that we can do this. Yeah, but of course it was not at par with Deloitte. Let's face it. Yeah, there was, and I even remember I was heavily involved in that process just because of what you said, because we became so, in a way, you know, frustrated with the thing that we might not deliver, that we gave it our best shot. And this guy got a service which probably he would have gotten from a Egon Zehnder. I'm not sure if you know Egon Zehnder. It's one of the best HR companies in the world. Just because we were so super scared that he invested in us, and he didn't invest much because those were petty cash for him. You know, it was an add-on to what he wanted to do. But because of that, we took the best people. We effectively freelanced one of the best, you know, HR recruiters in Poland at that point in time, and he helped us run this process. So it was more an integration function that we did here. And effectively, we hired 15 people for him. We recommended that he should do the plant in Łódź. We met with the Łódź authorities. But I started saying what was interesting is that I remember that I was, you know, finishing my job at Citi at 6 o'clock. I was closing my computer, and these folks, they were in the US. They weren't based in Poland yet. Thank God for the time difference, because when I came back home, these guys thought that it's more or less the beginning of the day, because for them it was the beginning of the day. So we could be in the office. So I was home from my day job, and then doing this thing in the evenings, coordinating so that the next day, when this guy was sleeping, those folks were sleeping, during the day, our guys locally can do the work, and then in the evening we can just report to him what we've done. And in 2 months we effectively closed this project. And again, we didn't make, don't get me wrong, we didn't make millions on this, okay? We probably didn't make much money even on it, yeah? We did make some, but it wasn't game-changing. I'm talking about doing things for the learning, for the experience, and for, you know, getting a better feeling to do in life. This is not something that is going to make you a millionaire. Potentially it could, yeah? The example of, there's this company in Poland, Work Service, yeah? That's how this guy started. They just went on, and now they're one of the largest players in Central Eastern Europe, yeah? So, and we did 3 projects like this. So I'm just doing this as inspiration. And then the second thing, so this thing kept on, and it was a project thing, okay? So we did projects, yeah? So when a company came in, we were servicing them, and then 2005, 2007, this is not a picture of me, like don't worry, it's not me on that boat, yeah? No, I found it actually yesterday on the internet from some old crappy commercial that we did. So, you know, I met someone that effectively was looking to buy a power boat, yeah? And he said, you know, I was walking around the market, and there's a niche in Poland. You can buy and remember this 205, yeah? So back. And there weren't that many boats in Poland at that point in time, like if you really care, but there weren't. One point. Second point is that at that point in time, the FX rate to the dollar was very much, let's call it, in favor or like against the Polish currency, meaning that American products in Poland were very expensive. Hence, a basic boat from the US was always 2 or 3 times more expensive as a product manufactured locally. So this guy was walking around the market, a friend of mine, and you know, he found that he couldn't buy a boat with the budget he had. The only thing he found a guy that was doing effectively in his shag a boat which he has developed on his own. And you know, we talked about it. Boats are fun, by the way. Yeah, I'm not sure if you tried it. It's really fun. So we loved it. We had this boat. We were playing with it. Then we said one day, you know what? Like if that is not on the market, why not commercialize what this guy is doing in the shag? Create some kind of a structure around it and start to sell it. Yeah. So again, you know, I'm sitting in the city thing. I'm doing my day job, and then in the evenings, we effectively hired a small plant 30 kilometers outside of Warsaw, where we started to assemble this boat. We created a brand. It was called Stratus Boats. It's still visible, and we actually, like this is the best part, yeah? In 2005, it was the year that we launched the boat, yeah? So we got this guy, we civilized him, we redesigned the boat, we got all the approvals. It's a boat, yeah? So it's like a car now. You need to get all the approvals. It's not that you just create a boat and you sell it. You need to get, and even you need to, at that point in time, European Union, CE certificate we need to get. So we got all of that. We go on boat fairs, you know, the first boat fairs in Łódź. And we actually got the award for the best debut. Like, imagine how random that is. Like, you're appearing there with a boat, and this guy, yeah, it's the best debut. So because of that, and again, this is a funny piece. You see, it's all in Russian. It's on purpose it's in Russia, because we started to export boats to Ukraine. So I went to boat fairs. Again, I was taking holidays from Citi, and I was saying, yeah, I'm going to the countryside. No, I was flying to Kiev for a boat show, because our biggest distributor of boats was showing our boats there. Okay? So, again, did we make, so, and it lasted to 2007. We built, I think, 30 boats altogether, out of which 60% went abroad, the rest went to Poland. And then in 2007, we came to a point where we really needed to make, we counted, because we did like a business plan, and we need to invest $1 million in the business to move it to the next level, to develop a second model, and also to expand the factory, develop everything. And 2007 is, remember, when I showed you my career, that's when I got the offer from JP Morgan in London. So I'm standing at this dilemma, what to do with my life next, because I've been dreaming of having this business. It's a great business, by the way. You do boats, it's fun, I tell you. On the other hand side, you got someone calling you from JP Morgan saying, by the way, we want you in London, and you're going to get this and that role, actually interesting role. So you make the choice. What do you want to do in life? And I decided that we are selling this business, and we sold this business to effectively a similar, a bit bigger shipyard that had the same dilemma as we did. The only difference was that they had a bigger boat than we did, so they incorporate our boat into their range, and you can still buy this boat under their brand in Poland. We sold the boat, and we sold the business, and I went to London, because at that point in time I figured, and actually if I'm thinking about it today, it was a good decision, just because the boat industry went through significant change, and without only having one model, without the investment, we probably wouldn't have survived. But again, I'm talking about, like what I have learned by those two experiences which I've given you, doing at the same time my corporate thing and working, with this, it's priceless. It's priceless. It's worth all the money. It's worth all of the, experience, and I can only recommend you guys to be that, go forward thinking. So, career stability, sitting, at Citi and doing your thing, without, thinking outside of the box, you're effectively thinking you're minimizing risk, yeah? But end of day, today, if you're playing it too safe, in my humble opinion, and this is what, our friend, the LinkedIn guy is saying, too, or I'm saying it after him, is that, it's one of the riskiest things you can do, just because what we spoke about, there's so much change, there's so much turmoil, things are really, evolving on a regular basis. So, playing it safe, and as I mentioned, sitting in one, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying, if you really want to develop and if you want to go to the next level, you really need to be open to this type of
But maybe didn't you ask for many, let me say, duties or challenges in the city?
You know what, believe me, I had enough. Yeah. Believe me, I had enough.
But on the other side, you tell that it was kind of getting started there.
It was
kind of getting started there, but
no, well, yeah, fair point, and yes, because remember that at the beginning of your career, you have a dilemma, and you guys will have the same dilemma, because you start working in a corporate environment, and there's a ceiling. Okay, if you are in the organization for 4 years, and you already think you can be at one level above, you will not be one level above until you make your years. That's why, if you're ambitious, you're thinking what to do outside of this box to really be able to put your energy and your drive into experimenting something new. And you're right. My situation was different. In my situation, I couldn't squeeze more out of Citi, or maybe I didn't want to, because I figured what I was doing was sufficient. But you're right, there might be situations where you are sitting in this Citi thing, and you can go and try to experiment within the organization. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just giving you my example, which was a bit different.
It's referred to minimizing the risk. You've taken the risk, but you could have stayed in your own organization and doing something internal, also development.
Of course you could, of course. No, like I'm not saying, again, this is my story, so it's like my case was a bit different. You're right, you can stay in the organization, you can develop, you can do a lot of things. I think it's the mindset. It's the mindset that comes, because what I'm talking more about is like, don't be complacent. Because if you become complacent, then you're playing it too safe, and then you are not exposing yourself to the opportunities that can be created. And whatever you do, like I'm only giving you my examples, and as you see, they kept me, still going the same route, as I looked at it more as a learning exercise, which I take a lot of pleasure from. So the ones, the opportunities, question marks, we spoke about that. It all boils down to entrepreneurship. I mentioned that, and I think I showed you that, outside of what I was doing in the corporate world, I was also doing a bit of entrepreneurial activities. And this is the synopsis of all of this, and I think this is the last slide, so that's good news for you guys. So what I'm doing today, and I think this is interesting, because I've effectively moved from JP Morgan to run Standard & Poor's and Central Eastern Europe as a startup. The only thing I agreed a strategy with them, I got a budget, and then they said, Marcin, you do your thing. You call us from time to time, you tell us more or less where you are, but you do your thing. You hire people, you set up the office. Effectively, end of the day, you are a managing director, we don't really care. You are that senior that you can do that. So these folks have given me an opportunity to become an entrepreneur in a world of a very conservative organization. Why? Because I was able to prove to them that I've done a similar thing for JP Morgan, that I've done a similar thing working on my own, and I'm mature enough to deliver on what we have agreed as the strategic objectives. So again, all of the things that I've done in life, now, they came together, giving me the opportunity to, outside of working in a very formalized corporate environment, develop something which is my own, which I really feel that it's like setting up my own business. What is the next stage, you probably will ask? Probably the next stage is a bit, again, moving the hybrid to the more equity space. So not only setting up the business and running it, but also getting exposure to being a shareholder in the business. Is it possible in S&P? To some degree, less. Yeah, but going forward, maybe that's the plan. And that's the plan that my colleague I told you about, that I met, Merrill Lynch guy, that's what he went for. Next step was he paired or teamed up with one of the most affluent Poles, which at that point in time wasn't one of the most affluent Poles, and together they developed a business which is now the most successful Polish financial institution regionally. Yeah. So I'm just showing you this because, in my opinion, this all is like the catalyst for all of the things I've been talking about, and this shows you and answers in a way your question why I went for the change and how this change. Because again, what I'm doing now is I am learning. Yeah. So I needed so I'm an MD. I'm running S&P in Central Eastern Europe, which is 13 countries, and I needed to hang my own pictures on the wall in the office. Okay. At JP Morgan, I had a person flying in from New York hanging the pictures because they came from the collection of JP Morgan. Here I did on my own because there was no one to support me. It's a startup. Getting your hands dirty even now, it is a very good thing. And I'm really learning a lot now. So in my next stage, when I want to establish my own business maybe again, I will have all of the credibility and the credentials and the knowledge of having operated for such a strong brand and doing it under their effectively oversight, but giving me this huge exposure to intellectual development. So to sum up, last slide, I promise you. The 4 things that I want to leave with you today, which I've spoken about, and you're intelligent people, and you have fished out where I've spoken about those things. 1, professionalism. So, as I mentioned to you, whatever you do, especially at the beginning of the career, it needs to be of the best quality. If I have someone working for any of our organizations, especially on the bottom, and I mean bottom in the positive term, so really facing the workload, that person is expected to deliver at his best. And there was one saying by a person that I have a lot of respect for, unfortunately someone that passed away years ago. His name was Sunil Srinivasa. He was the CEO of Citi in Poland at that point in time when I was working for him, and I was also as his MA. And he said one thing, he said, to whom much is given, much is expected. And that's professionalism. So to whom you give, you expect a lot in return. And all organizations will do that, all startups will do that, and it's the only way for you guys to show your competitive advantage and that you really are valuable and you provide a return and you should be invested in to develop further. One thing. Second, creativity. Very important point that goes hand in hand with that. Creativity, developing solutions, coming up with ideas and being really at the forefront of showing the extra vibe to develop. And I mean in everyday work, in coming with solutions, you know, not taking things for granted, not sitting there and saying that's the way it should be. No, some things can be modified, and you guys should be talking about that.
At the very beginning, you spoke about 2 years of dog work let me say
Dog years, it's
dog
called.
years, yeah.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask if 2 years is not too long to, let me say, kill your creativity.
No, well, you know, you can be creative in that. You know, you can be creative in that. Like, if you want to be promoted, if you want to develop, you need to be creative. Yeah, I'm saying dog years is more like an expression, which is more, what it means is that effectively you really need to work hard. You really need to work hard. You know, you probably guys read about this, yeah? When you start your career at investment banking, you're an analyst. Analysts effectively sit, you know, long hours. Sometimes they sleep in the office. That's how it is, because there's a lot of pressure. I'm not saying it's good or bad. Some people like it, some people don't like it, yeah? But if you are creative in that, and believe me, I met very many analysts that were super creative, and after 2-3 years they got promoted, and now they're, you know, very, very successful. Not only within the banking space. Some of them have moved on, are doing different things. But it's the ones that weren't creative, haven't been promoted, and they're still sitting there, and you're right, they're probably becoming, or maybe not. There are people that, you know, this is not a formula. Some people just don't need it. Some people just are happy with what they do, and nothing to push them for. So, you know, creativity and proactiveness, those 2 points which I've outlined here, that's effectively, you know, what I see as a feature that I'm talking about leaders here. I'm not giving you a remedy to be an average person. That's not what I'm here for. I'm giving you a remedy how to be a leader, how to develop. And I think with that, that's how you will achieve it. Despite the fact that you will need to work hard, which is obvious, yeah? And then what I mentioned, you know, the whole concept of embracing change and taking advantage of change and taking advantage in the opportunities which are created by change. So, you know, don't fear change, don't fear the fact that, you know, you will be outside of the comfort zone and you will need to get exposure to a different market, community. That's the best way to learn, that's the best way to get yourself educated, and work with people that currently you consider as mentors, but because they're new, it's a new thing, but later you will become alike. You will effectively, your level will go up, aligning with theirs. So with that, I think that's the end of what I wanted to talk about, and I'm opening, despite that we had a very good conversation here with questions, maybe there is something else that you want to talk about, ask questions. I'm all yours. Yes, I'm going to give you the microphone.
Okay, thank you.
So everyone can hear.
So thank you for your presentation. I would like to ask you the question about changes and opportunities. In your speech, you talk that change creates opportunities. And for example, as we can now observe, there are a lot of changes offered by IT and big data and so on that may create a challenge for financial system, the traditional financial system. Let's say there's an application made by BlackRock that enables to create portfolio. So this may be kick traditional brokers and analysts from the job market. And from your perspective, for us students of second year, third year, how can we actually use this change because we do not already possess some of the skills that are needed in the market? So we already enrolled in the programs that are created for, let's say, traditional finance students. And is there any opportunities to remain our competitive advantage in comparison to others?
You know, I think that's a good question. It's a very bright question. You're right, and it's not only that, but you know, also look at what's happening within the space of financing. Financing has moved outside. You know, this whole Kickstarter thing. It's an amazing concept. You literally now have a completely unregulated market, which is starting to finance development of businesses around the world. Concept, people, businesses. So the evolution, you're right. It is huge. It is a huge changing block, and you know, banks are looking at it, financial institutions are looking at it, ITs are looking at it. I think for you guys, what is important to look is effectively to really be focused on these type of developments, these type of technologies, because you probably should be best placed as the young generation, as I like to call it, or the people that have the freshest minds to most quickly absorb these concepts. Like if you look at, and I don't have the data in front of me, but if you look at the average age of a Facebook employee, I probably would say it's around 26 years old. Yeah, I probably guess that's more than, I mean, it's only a guess. Yeah, LinkedIn probably the same. All of these companies, it's young people. So it's people like you. Why? Because if I would go to a Facebook, I don't understand that concept. Okay, I don't understand how you can monetize that concept. Yeah, because I'm too traditional, maybe. Or maybe I would. I'm just giving you as an extreme example. I think for you guys, if you really start to follow these developments at an early stage, you can enter the market being maybe sometimes even more experienced than the people that have been working in that industry for some time, just because they are traditional. Remember, at this point in time, all of the concepts that you mentioned, you usually don't make money on them yet. It's something that is still there. It's Kickstarter is making money, but not that many more people are making money on it. You guys, as you treat that as a development thing, you can absorb this information, try to think how you can really understand and be a bit better in terms of its application, be creative, try to think what's the edge there, and then go to one of these companies and say, by the way, I've been analyzing this for the last 4 years of my studies. I know this company, I know this concept, I've been potentially doing an internship there, or I've done an internship at a bank, and I saw how those technologies are changing how a bank operates. So for me now it's going to be easier to work for you because I know the other side. I know the side of your client or the side of your competitor. So I think that's how I would look at it. I would look at it, if you find interest in a topic, go for it, be detailed, be very focused on it, and thanks to that you will be able to develop, in my opinion, really a understanding, which then when you enter the market can really put you at par with someone, because those are new industries. Those are new industries. It's far easier to learn about an industry which is 4 years than at an industry which has been there for hundreds of years. Yeah, S&P has been operating 125 years, so it's not that easy to get educated on S&P in 1 year. But if you're the cloud or big data has been really, like proper big data isn't yet working. Big data is only a concept. There are few organizations in the world that get big data right. So you guys, you're at such an early stage, you're like very early adopters. You can really navigate that and then come to a company and say, you know what, big data, I've been doing that for the last 4 years when I was studying, I was reading about it. There's so much publications on it. Yeah, in the UK, in the US, people are writing about it, reports, everything. Read it, master it, and then come as nearly an expert. Yeah, and I think that's the edge. That's the edge, and it's going to be easier. Believe me, it's easier than if you go to a commodities trader and you try to explain to him that you're a better commodities trader than he is. You will never be a better commodities trader than he is. He's been doing it for years. It's a hardcore business, but with big data, you actually might get a bit of understanding. I'm not sure if it answers the question. There's never a good answer to such a question. It's always a matter of interpretation. But that's how I would look at it. Yeah.
Any more questions?
All right, I just would like to ask you, firstly, thank you for your presentation, and I would just like to ask you, what surprised you the most when you first entered the corporate world, as in the difference between the studies and so on and the corporate world then versus corporate world now?
Good question, and it's a good question. I need to think about the answer. Many things have surprised me. I think two fundamental things which are worth, this power of free. They always say it's the power of free. If you're pointing out things, you always say free. People remember free. They don't remember less, they remember free. So I'm going to try to think of free. First thing was that I really saw that from the outside, the organizations look more complex than they really are. So you have this vision when you're entering this type of an organization that it's a super complicated, super difficult beast with people that are extremely experienced and extremely hungry and extremely knowledgeable. It's not always that case. And it doesn't mean it's negative, it just means that organizations are also made out of people, and people are different. And if you enter that type of an organization, sometimes what you thought when you just read about it won't be the case when you really see it in reality. So I think that's this mismatch between how organizations look from the outside, how complex they are, to when you are inside, things come into a frame. It's more easy to navigate yourself. It's this whole thing of learning by doing. If you're in there, it's just easier. Things become easier. That's one thing. Second thing I probably would say is the whole concept of organizations. When you think about it being like from looking at it from the outside, you really think that when you've entered, you will become like part of the community. I think the whole concept of adaptation is something that I was surprised with, because you think that you come out of your studies and you're more or less adopted to the work life, you know, to what people talk about, the language. You're not. Okay? You're not. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Why? Because each company has its lingo, each company has its specifics, and you need to learn that. So the adaptation for me was a surprise. I thought that adaptation would be quicker. It takes a bit of time for people to adopt. Even the best people that we've hired recently, even those ones with those top CVs, it takes them time to adopt. So the skills which you get here, as I mentioned, they are a pillar. It's not that you're plug and play into the corporate world. That's why it's so important to work during studies, because then you become more adaptable. So this whole concept of adaptability. And probably the third thing, I'm not even sure, I think probably the whole concept, you know, of motivation is, you know, how much I didn't expect the fact that you get so much motivation from an organization just by the fact that you want to, that you really, you're effectively, you know, you come in and you know that you are quite limited in your understanding, and that gives you a lot of motivation to develop. I didn't expect that. I thought you just come in and, you know, it's plug and play, it's easier, and just because of that, I really, you know, I wasn't expecting that you get so much motivation from people, from the fact that you're sitting with someone and you have, I remember I went, you know, this is a good example, I went to my first meeting, my first client meeting when I joined JP Morgan. So, you know, like I joined Monday and then Wednesday, I think, they're saying, okay, we're flying to Germany, we're meeting with one of the largest banks, and like you will ultimately become the relationship manager for this account. So I remember as if it was yesterday, I was sitting in that room, and I'm kidding you not, out of the whole conversation which was done in English, I understood 40%. 40%. And it was because at the beginning they spoke about the weather. Okay, so yeah, of course I understood what they talked about the weather, but afterwards it was, I had no clue. Okay, the language was different, the business was different, things were just different. Yeah, so the whole concept of adapting, like it took me some time, but the motivation you get when you're sitting and you effectively, like they're asking, so what do you think about it? And you say, good thought process, interesting, yes, oh, that added value. There's nothing more you can say because you haven't yet adopted. So that motivation you get is huge. And for me, it worked significantly. So, you know, everywhere I went, at a new place, you get a lot of drive from this whole concept that you effectively hit, you know, deep waters, and you need to instantly get, you know, you don't want to go, you don't want to jump. You just need to start swimming. So I think those would be the three things which, and I think that when I was talking to you, if you would ask me how to mitigate those things, I think I've given you a few ideas how to mitigate those things. Yeah, and I think that in a way it was a good question because it did, you know, give a bit of a summary in a way and rationale talking about. So I think that's how I would answer your complex question. It's always, you know, I always say ask questions and then like people say, yeah, no, that's questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for your presentation. You talk about success story a lot, but I would like to ask you a question about the failures. Most of our guys are going to
Of course.
met that.
Definitely.
And how to deal with that? And have you ever had
Of
failures?
course. Like I think you got that, yeah? The fact that the boat company didn't become a multi-million-dollar company is a failure. It is a failure. Face it, yeah? If you would look at it on a standalone basis, the measure of success for that boat company would be that it would by now be a big company, listed, all of that. It didn't. Was it a failure? Yeah, it was. It was. I probably, if you ask me, I will always be telling you why it failed because I was busy with Citi, I didn't have time, all of that. But end of the day, it was a failure. Yeah. If it would have been a success, then it would have still be, you know, living on. So of course I did. Of course I did have many failures. You know, even in the corporate world, some ideas, some things that I was working on, they failed. They didn't come into fruition. Or someone came and said, you know, no, we're going to do it a different way. My remedy for that is again by what I said, learning by doing and trying. You know, in the US, it's interesting. In the US, it's good to become bankrupt once in your life. Yeah, it's good to become bankrupt. So if you're hiring a person If that person has gone bankrupt, it's a good thing, because you know they've made the errors. They understand what happens if you completely are, you know, wiped out of your resources. So we don't have this mentality in Europe. We don't. Yes, but I think that's a bit of an answer to your question. The concept of failure and the concept of learning is extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. And from the boat business, I've learned one thing. One thing. Don't, and I shouldn't be saying this, yeah, but I'm going to tell you. Don't do two things at once. Okay? If you want to do something, focus on it and do it right. My problem was that I was doing both Citi and the boat company. So one of these things needed to fail. Fortunately, it was the boat company, because if Citi would have failed, I would have been stuck with this boat company, and I wouldn't be talking to you now. Or maybe I would, but I would be trying to sell you boats or sell you something different. Yeah. So I think, you know, it was a failure, yes, but end of day, it was, you know, as I say, maybe random, maybe not random, but now I know that I would not put myself into a situation that I would be doing a high-profile corporate job and at the same time doing my own business, because it's not going to fly. You just don't have time. You're limited. Your span of attention is limited, and also, you know, the things that I've learned, you know, in terms of working with people, you know, like one thing you guys need to do in your life, and I wish you this, is you need to work in a small factory. It's the best thing ever, or like even run a small factory. So I've been working at ABB in a factory, and then we were running the small, you know, the small factory of boats. Yeah, why? Because the mentality of people that work on the assembly line is very different. It's very different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. So, you know, for you guys, that I think everyone has aspirations to become managers, to become business people. I believe it's very important you understand perspective and you are able to value it. You're able to pride in it because it's different to what you think. So again, another example, you know, of like, it was a learning because it failed, yes. Did it fail? Yes. But, you know, because of the fact that, you know, we were running this small thing, I learned how to work with people that have a just different approach, yeah, just are different, have different motivation, operate in a different manner, have less attention to detail, are not a professional, yes. So probably that's what I would say. I think, you know, the more you can gain from it, the better. And I think now is the best time to make errors for you guys, yeah. If I make an error now, I can easily, you know, sink. Because the error, the magnitude of the error might be greater. For you guys, with all due respect, yeah, if you fail on a company or you fail in a internship, like, who cares? Just move on. And what you do, you maximize, you know, the exposure. Even, you know, today, if you give me a CV, and in that CV you say, I've been working at Goldman Sachs for 1 month during my summer holidays, yeah, and you don't tell me the fact that you did one project, but that project failed. Or even you tell me that. For me, I don't care. There's nothing wrong about it. It failed, but you were at the company, you established yourself. Actually, it's actually a good thing, because you had, you know, individualism to create something. It failed, it did. Because maybe the organization wasn't modern enough, or maybe you didn't have sponsorship enough. There's many reasons for failure. And I think without understanding the reasons for failure, it's not that easy to judge whether it's good or bad. So I think the answer can be, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's something that, you know, enriches you. And especially now, I think you guys should be, you know, make errors. You know, just try to, and out of 10 startups, one will be successful. Out of 10 internships, one will be the place where you will then stay and develop your career. So if you don't take 10, you probably will not end up, you know, succeeding. Yeah.
Any more questions? Let's say it's the last one.
Yes, you need to go home. Yeah.
Because you had a company and you are working in such a good company, yeah. And I would like to ask you, you are more enjoying to be a CEO of your own company, or be hired on some kind of high level in a good respected company in the whole world?
It's a great question. I love this question. And no, really, it is because I think much about that. Because I think much about what you just said. And the answer is not that easy. I think if you ask me where do you get more satisfaction from, you definitely get more satisfaction from running your own business. Face it, you do. And even in my current role, I get more satisfaction because I'm running more of my own business than I did when I was working at JP, face it. Just because you take more ownership, you feel that it's your baby. You know, your baby is always the most, you guys don't have babies, but they're always the most beautiful ones, yeah? Like, whatever anyone says, you have the most beautiful baby, yeah? So it's a bit like that, it's a bit like that. So I think the answer to your question a bit depends on what you mean, what gives you more satisfaction. If it's money, depends. Because sometimes, you know, the corporate world can give you more money than the money you would gain working on your own. So I think it's also important or I'm going to give you another example. An example is of people that move out of the corporate world to become teachers. And they do that, they sacrifice money, they do it because they love educating, they love being in front of students. They take that decision because they get more satisfaction from being in a bit of a different environment. So I think the answer, if you're asking what is on my level, I think currently, I get more satisfaction from what I'm doing today than what I was doing when I was running my own show, just because where I am today gives me far greater exposure. If I would be running my own show, maybe, but there would be lower chances of me, I don't know, being interviewed by Forbes in Poland. Yes, but
yeah, this is the risk. Yeah, but you said that if we are playing safe, actually we are playing risk. But isn't it quite a bit more being safe if you're employed by someone, and even if you will be sick, I don't know, for 1 month or something, you know that you will come back, you will have a job, and every day you can come to your desk, of course, if you do not fail. But if you have your own business and you will be sick for 1 month, your business is probably just saying.
Very good point.
No.
Very good point. No, I cannot dispute with that. Yeah, depends what type of business you have. Yeah, remember, like if you are now running a Google, you can be sick for like.
Yeah, of course. If you are the CEO of the
but these guys started, you know, as a small shop. A lot of companies in Poland, this whole country is made of companies that started as small shops. Yes, so I think again, I know what you're saying, and I get that, and I get the fact what you're saying. There's more security in the corporate world, and I agree there is, but it doesn't mean that you need to downplay the upside which can potentially be generated out of the fact that early in your career you start doing something on your own. That's what I said. You now have the possibility to take risks. So I think, you know, if you ask me like today, if I would open up my own business, if the fundamentals would be good, if the upside will be there, yes I would. Yes I would. But I wouldn't open a shop, or I wouldn't open I would open up something which is more or less at par with maybe not at par, but more or less, you know, in the same scale as, or has the potential to develop in a relatively short time frame, mid-term, to this type of a level. Yes, I would. And I know you will say, but your situation is different because you've been in the industry for a long time, you probably have savings, blah, 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 yeah? Fair. So I don't think there's a good answer to your question. I think in terms of taking decisions in life, it's not about should I go to the corporate world and be safe, or should I do my own business and be less safe. I think it's more about what you want to do in life. If you want to be, you know, a person that operates on international markets, you want to have exposure to huge transactions, you want to be advising the best companies in the world, you go for the corporate world. Because there are minimal chances you will establish a business that will give you this type of an exposure. And leave risk aside, leave security aside, yeah? But if you want to be running a team of 10 people, doing an internet thing, or not even an internet, like a small thing, because you think that that's you, or you love to, if you've invented something, it's your baby, you want to develop that, you go for your own business. Because if you will go to the corporate world, you will be unhappy, believe me. Because you will be constantly thinking, oh, I should have done that. And ideally what you should do is you should start doing your own thing. If it fails, then you go to the corporate world. But why? Because then you're going to feel better, because you've tried it. Without trying, you will always be sitting there and thinking, I should have done that, I should have. And believe me, I've met a lot of people that have this problem, that haven't tried, you know, or in London there was this huge thing, you know, when the financial crisis came, a lot of people were made redundant. Like at JP, I've survived, I think, 9 redundancies. I mean, like people around me were getting fired, yeah? And a lot of those people, they exited the banking world and they started to do their own businesses. Some people started to bake cakes. Some people started to make like bijoux. Some people started to do diving academy, stuff like that. And those were, and if you ask them, are you more happy now or were you more happy then? They said, you know what, we're making less money, but we are more happy. Because this is what we always wanted to do. It was just that I was in this corporate, you know, vicious circle, and I just couldn't focus on what I want to do. And again, it's a choice. And they say, of course, if they wouldn't have made me redundant, I would probably be still doing that thing and not knowing that the grass can be greener on the other side. Yeah. So I think you're asking a very difficult, fundamental question, which goes very much down to your backbone. What is your satisfaction in life? You know, I think every answer will be different. Every person has different aspirations. Every person has different needs. Every person has, even, you know, some people need to have, you know, drive a Porsche. Some people will be happy with a Renault. Yeah, if you're happy to drive a Renault, there's nothing wrong with driving a Renault, by the way. If you're happy driving a Renault, you probably don't need to be a millionaire, but, you know, because you will be happy what you're doing, because you will get so much fun from your everyday activity. Yeah. But as I'm saying, I think to answer your question, I'm not going away from the question. I think my choice today, when I'm doing a business within a larger business, is something that gives me definitely more satisfaction than when I was running my own small shop. How big or how interesting it was, this is definitely far more for me personally. I'm not saying it's like someone probably else would say differently. Yeah. I know I didn't give you an answer to that. I know, because there isn't a good answer. Perspective, you know, it's like, yeah. If I would have known, you know, we would be all, you know, millionaires by now, probably, or not, or maybe not. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
On behalf of Business Club, we'd like to say thank you for
Thank you.
this very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
I hope everybody will come together.
Questions? You have my details, so if you want anything, you can always go.
Yes, we will send the...
Yes, but do it in PDF, please. Okay? Good. Thank you.
And for the audience, watch out for more interesting events like this one.
Exactly.
Thanks.